Hey everyone, Beardo here. You are watching Minutia Minute comic book reviews. We're back at last after a month hiatus. I gotta say, I just one last time, I had a lot of fun doing my modern age history of Batman videos. Thanks everyone who participated, but I gotta say it was really nice on Monday morning getting up and not thinking I need to do a whole bunch of videos to get caught up. And then, furthermore, yesterday, going to the comic book shop, picking up my comic books and knowing that I was going to come home and talk to you guys about them on Thursday morning. So that in and of itself was kind of a treat, and I'm really excited to be back on regular reviews, and I hope you enjoy them as much now as you did before the hiatus. Now, I'm going to go through books kind of quickly today because I've got about 8 books to go over. Usually I only do about 6. And usually I order these from least favorite to most favorite. Not possible with this bunch of books because each issue that I read was decent. None of them were like so good that they were perfect, so it's hard to pick like a pick of the week this week. But at the same time, none of them were terrible. None of them just had me completely rolling my eyes and just like getting really, really mad either. So instead, I've ordered them from least interesting to most interesting because some of them definitely got my brain juices flowing more than other books did, and today's ordering is going to kind of reflect that. So, we're going to kick it right off with the least interesting book of October 3rd, 2012, and that is none other than, what a surprise, Jeff Johns' book of the week, which is Green Lantern this week. Now, this issue really spelled out for me the problems that I think a lot of people have been having with Green Lantern at large over the last several months, and that is Jeff Johns is really struggling to balance his A and B story. The A story in Rise of the Third Army is right in the title. You have the Third Army rising on Earth, taking over, human hosts. You have the Guardians coming in and planning to, wipe out all of the different color lanterns and, basically commit mass genocide and rebuild the universe from the ground up. You have, Hal Jordan and Sinestro trapped together in this ring that has come to this new lantern. Like, that's basically the A story in a nutshell. The B story is Simon Baz, whatever, however you say his name, is our new Green Lantern. He is, it's hard to say because, obviously Jeff Johns seems to intend that this is going to be a new regular Lantern, but at the same time it's hard to believe that Hal Jordan won't be back soon. So, Simon Baz's sort of personal life is, in my opinion, kind of the B story. Like the whole idea that he's a terrorist, or not a terrorist, but a car thief, mistaken to be a terrorist because he happened to... Yeah, I'm not going to get into that. That was last issue, didn't review that, not going to. The B story is that this Simon Baz character is, wanted by the Justice League. To me, that's the B story. That has nothing to do with the Rise of the Third Army, and yet that seems to be the main story in this. The Rise of the Third Army just takes place in a few pages here and there, very much stuff that's sort of in the woodwork, in the background, not the A story. And that's what's, I think, making me nuts, and that's what's been making me nuts for the last several issues, is all of the really compelling ideas that he's had, he's shuffled back onto the B story, and those stories seem to be getting resolved completely in the B story, and they never seem to become the A story. And here, with a book called Rise of the Third Army, that is happening again. Now, I can appreciate that Jeff Johns is trying to take some time to set up this new Green Lantern character. I get it. But at the same time, why are you introducing a new Green Lantern character now? Like, that is something that I have a big problem with. It doesn't fit. You have such a big story going on, to introduce this new character in the middle of it, and then take time to develop him, is just taking away from the main story again. And so, kind of the same problem with when he introduced Black Hand back in. It's like, that was a great development, but we had all this other stuff going on, and it's hard to really balance those two things. I think we're having the same problem here with the introduction of Simon. I will say that the art was decent, but yeah, honestly, this book, pretty much a dud, it'll pick up, and I'm excited for the Third Army. Unfortunately, it's just still B story. And, at the end of this, you have the typical Jeff Johns tease, which is we're going to bring in some heroes at the very end, and the big twist is he's going to fight the new heroes. You know, it's just stupid. Anyway, Jeff Johns' Green Lantern number 13 did not make my juices of my brain flow at all. So there you go. Least interesting book of the week. Second least interesting book of the week goes to Amazing Spider-Man number 695. Now, this book was okay, and I don't, even though it's towards the bottom, I don't want to like diss it, because frankly, while the Alpha storyline didn't really grab me, and I was happy to not have to review most of it because it just didn't really do it for me, it was serviceable. This story, kind of the same thing, although the stakes are getting higher. We're getting into this whole danger zone thing that was teased way back in the Lizard storyline, and it's nice to see that that's kind of finally coming to fruition. I know some people are excited to have all these hobgoblins fighting each other. Frankly, I looked on Wikipedia and saw that there were like 1,000 different hobgoblins, and now I'm not going to go there. I'll enjoy it for what it is, but I'm not going to get too deep into that. The other thing about this book, I guess, that is maybe most intriguing for Marvel fans, but was something that didn't get me excited, was you have this big splash page with Madam Web, and it's kind of like the Pandora splash page at the end of Flashpoint, where you get this tease of all the Marvel Now stuff coming up. And frankly, that for me was kind of a letdown, because the whole idea that, you know, Madam Web had all this stuff that, you know, things were changing and there were going to be big consequences for Peter Parker and all this stuff. And it seems to be all the stuff she's sensing is actually Marvel Now and not like real consequences for the character, was a little bit disheartening. However, on the flip side of that, you do have some really important implications going on in this issue in regards to Peter Parker's identity and stuff going all the way back to Civil War. So with this issue, frankly, I'm really on the fence about it. I'm not sure if I'm in love with the storyline or not yet. I'm guessing 696 is going to get my brain juices flowing a little bit more than this issue did. So potentially a good start, but not enough yet for me to really put it high on my list today. One last thing I want to say about this is we have Cameron Coley back on art again, and I didn't like him at all on the Wizard storyline. I complained about it pretty much every issue that I read. This time we have him back, but it's not so bad. And when I was reviewing him last time, I said the inker has got to go. His inkling lines are too thick, and it's just really making the artwork really, really clunky. That was Klaus Janson doing that, and he is not doing the inking on this book, and lo and behold, the art's a lot better. It's not great, but it's better. So there you go. Alright, next up, we have sort of a middle-of-the-road book. I don't want to say third least interesting, because it was kind of interesting. The reason why this one lies a little bit lower is because previous issues have been more interesting, and that is Earth 2 issue number 5. Now, I'm enjoying Earth 2. I really have been enjoying... the book has been a little bit directionless up to now. This is the book that we're starting to see the direction. But one of the things I loved about the first few issues were the twists, like getting to see the characters come to light, getting to see how like our continuity in the DC New 52 ties into the Earth 2 continuity. And we do see that here, but there's no real new developments, it's just sort of a continuation of the developments we already had going. What you do get in this issue, though, is a really good, meaty fight story. Now, when I say meaty, I mean, if this... Basically, like, I would liken this storyline. This is like the storyline that gets all the heroes together, and it's in the context of the Rot. Now, in the New 52, we got all of our heroes together in the context of Darkseid. In the context of Earth 2, that's where all the heroes split up because they all died, right? Now, the thing that I like about this is with Justice League, you had such, you know, elongated storytelling that story took 5-6 issues to tell. This is probably going to take 2 issues. Now, what would be basically like you would expect to be like a big fight with Solomon Grundy that is just, you know, splash page after splash page, takes 3 minutes to read, like one of those books, isn't that at all. You have a lot of dialogue, you have a lot of stuff going on with the characters in this. And this actually took longer to read than a lot of the other books that I read this week, which for me was a testament to the quality writing that James Robinson is bringing to the book. I really did enjoy this issue, even though there weren't a lot of new, like, oh, intriguing moments. We're really seeing all those seeds kind of playing out with this. So it's nice, not as thought-provoking as some of the other issues, but it was still pretty good. The other thing about this I wanted to say, I guess, would be, we've set up our characters, we've got them in a room together, we're seeing them play out here, they're definitely going to continue to play out next issue, and I think the real test is going to be with issue 7, in terms of, what happens after this little rot sort of, I don't want to say interlude, but, the rot's going to bring everybody together, but now that they're together, what direction are they going to take? I'm not quite sure with this issue where it's all going to go. So issue 7 is the one to watch for, I think, guys, where we're really going to see what's going to happen with Earth 2 in the coming months. Alright, next up, again, middle of the road for thought-provoking because they were decent issues, but they didn't really lend a whole lot of thought-provokingness. I mean, pretty much what you expected to happen happened, and they're 2 books. They're tied because, what can I say, they're inexorably linked. Swamp Thing and Animal Man. My big issue with these books was they were the same book with 2 different titles on them. So how do I explain that? So basically, here is the story of Swamp Thing. Swamp Thing finds himself in Rot World. He finds unlikely allies throughout from outside of his usual sort of circle in the DCU. In his case, Deadman and Poison Ivy, as you can see on the cover. He finds his way to the Green Sanctuary, where there is a fight. In the meantime, we have flashbacks to before 1 year later, which is where this is all picking up in Rot World, where we see the ultimate fate of Abigail Arcane, which is, of course, that she dies with everybody else. Now, the plot of Animal Man is that Animal Man finds himself in the Rot World. He finds unlikely allies in the DCU, particularly Beast Boy and Black Orchid, I believe it was. He fights some bad guys as he finds his way to the Red Sanctuary, and in the meantime, we have flashbacks to 1 year before, where we find out the ultimate fate of what happened to his family, which is, of course, they die with everybody else. Yeah, literally the same book twice over. One's green, one's red, blah. That part was a little bit disappointing, although that story was intriguing. I just hope that these don't continue to literally be the same book moving forward. Out of the 2, I'd have to say the one that would win this week would have to be Animal Man, and it's really because of the 1 year before. Frankly, the stuff that happens with Abigail is good motivation for Swamp Thing in terms of issues to come, but it wasn't that surprising. It didn't have a whole lot of impact for me, I guess. With Animal Man, though, since we were so tied in with his family, earlier in issues 1 through 5 or so is where you really saw that, although they did try to continue it up until this issue as well. But because you were so invested in those characters, seeing them finally go down after 12 issues of running from the rot is a lot more gut-wrenching, and the way it happens is especially more gut-wrenching. So all in all, these books were interesting. Didn't like that it was the same thing twice over. Thought Animal Man was a little bit better. Alright, next up, we have a book that I have not picked up in quite a while, not since Scott Snyder left the book with issue 881. Now we're back to issue 13, and it is John Layman and Jason Fabok on Detective Comics. At last, Tony Daniel is gone. I didn't collect Tony Daniel when he was doing Batman. I wasn't about to collect him when he was doing Detective. Now, I do try to keep my Batman books down to a minimum. I don't get Dark Knight. It's just one of those, I have so much stuff I want to buy, and as much as Batman is my thing, I don't want to be just the Batman guy, even though I know I pretty much am. I like to do other stuff too. Now, I couldn't resist Detective Comics this week because I really love Jason Fabok. I thought that his Batman annual was excellent, and in my opinion, he's probably the best artist on Batman other than Greg Capullo. And on top of that, you have this quirky choice with John Layman, and it just made it a must-read book for me. And now, when John Layman said that he was coming on to Batman, he said he was going to really emphasize the detective aspect because it's something that gets lost. And it's true, it is something that gets lost, and it's something I'd like to see more of. Now, the question is, did he succeed with this book? And I would say that you get a sense of what he's going for. You have sort of this whole thing with the back computer and him sort of piecing together that he's basically being duped by some random villains, and it's all leading to something greater, and what's the bigger picture, and there is that detective element to it. However, since it all kind of plays out on the computer and he just kind of rattles it off like boom, 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 I didn't necessarily find it that compelling, but I did appreciate the direction he went with. What I will say that was very compelling was the way John Layman plays up the Bruce Wayne side of Batman. In the very first page of this, you get the delineation between Bruce Wayne and Batman and how each of them are having an impact in Gotham City. You have basically, Bruce Wayne yesterday made a blah 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 donation to this hospital. And then you see Batman beating the crap out of somebody, and he's like, and it's a good thing he made this donation because this guy is gonna need it, kind of a thing. It's kind of played for laughs, but at the same time you're setting up that dualism with Bruce Wayne and Batman. The storyline in this is that, these heists that Batman is trying to stop are covering up the fact that someone's out to kill Bruce Wayne. And so you bring Bruce Wayne into the forefront, and you have a little bit more stake in the Bruce Wayne character with John Layman. And that's something that Batman has always struggled with, because Batman is sort of the main character. Bruce Wayne is really just a facade, and it's hard to make that character interesting. John Layman really succeeded with that in spades with Detective Comics. I found that not only do you have this dualism between Batman and Bruce Wayne set up, not only do you have someone out to assassinate Bruce Wayne, getting that sort of time is running out for Bruce Wayne kind of interest in Bruce Wayne, but you also have this Penguin story, which Penguin isn't out for Batman, he's out for Bruce Wayne, and he is, you've set up this Golden Sun, Black Sheep, Gotham royal family element where Oswald Cobblepot is someone nobody likes, but he's still this huge staple of Gotham's, upper class. Bruce Wayne is the flip coin of that, and you have Bruce Wayne being pitted against the Penguin in that aspect, and again you have yet another element added to the Bruce Wayne level. Bruce Wayne was just a very interesting character in this, and I really liked that. Now, we do have an interesting ending with this, where the test of Bruce Wayne being able to keep his identity a secret is going to be kind of put to the test here, but it's hard to say where the next issue is going to go. I hope that John Layman continues to play up the Bruce Wayne aspect of it. I would find this to be a really interesting book if they did do that, because it's something that Scott Snyder doesn't do. Not to his discredit, it's just something he isn't focused on. So it would definitely give this book enough of a different direction that I definitely continue to pick it up. As I said at the beginning of this, I love Jason Fabok's artwork. This issue did not disappoint. My copy actually had a really bad printing. Like, there's a lot of like the black doesn't come through as black because it's really it's like they were running out of toner cartridge when this was printing, and yet on top of that I still found the artwork amazing, and I still found the coloring to be decent. So the fact that it still comes through on a pretty poor copy of the book really says a lot about the artist. I really dig it. It's awesome. Last thing I'm going to say about this, Agent 42Q pointed out in his review, it's $3.99. It's been $3.99 for a while because we got backup stories. Is John Layman bringing anything good to the backup stories? Sadly not. Not so far anyway. This backup story just fills in a backup character that we saw earlier in this. Doesn't really have any bearing on anything. Doesn't really add anything to his character. Doesn't really add anything to the tone of the story. It just is. So, unfortunately, this book definitely should be $2.99, but that first $2.99 may make it worth that extra dollar, because I really did find this book interesting. Alright, next up, we have got the second most interesting book of the week, and that was Danger Club, issue 4. Now, Danger Club is, a month and a week late. It's like 5 weeks late. This should have come out at the third week of August. It's not coming out till the first week of October. On top of that, this is a book that only comes out once every 6 weeks, so you have sort of the problem of keeping yourself invested. And I was worried going into this book. It's like, am I gonna have to go back and reread absolutely everything? And first of all, I didn't. And second of all, I found this book extremely engrossing. And this is a book where, I've said this every time I read it, they haven't spent enough time developing the characters. And yet, you have characters dying left and right in this, and they've been dying since issue 1. They've been dying, and yet somehow I find myself incredibly invested in them, and I just can't quite explain it. I think what it boils down to is you have a really interesting concept, which is the kids are stuck without their parents around, and it gives them a sense of sympathy, and they do a good job of drawing them as children and the way children solve problems. They're not, they're not irresponsible necessarily, but they sort of have a kid solution, and they have an unwillingness to back down. They have a brashness about them that does kind of inform their characters enough, and it makes their actions sort of that much more tragic when they do die. So for that reason, this book was still a page turner, and I was honestly really surprised. I was expecting to be kind of done with the book just because it had been so long since the last issue, and since we hadn't had enough character development. But they sucked me right back in with issue 4, and I'm still on board with it. So, more power to them. I hope that issue 5 comes out sooner. That's all I'm going to say. And again, very interesting book. Alright, most interesting book of the week. Is interesting because it's controversial. This is a series that I have never ever picked up in the past, and I have no context for the knowledge of how this book kind of goes normally. It's something that I've never really, I always see it on the shelf and I think this seems like really just pure cheesecake and probably kind of sexist, and that is Grimm Fairy Tales. Now, the book I picked up was Rpbyn Hood #1. What possessed me to pick this up? Honestly, I have absolutely no idea. I guess, I don't know. I saw it previewed in Comic Book News, or Comic Book, CBN? Yeah, whatever. I saw it previewed, and I was just kind of intrigued by a female Rpbyn Hood character. That's all I can say. I really don't know why I picked this up. However, the concerns I have about this when I see these kinds of books on the shelves was really justified in this. I found this book to be kind of incredibly sexist. And why did I find it sexist? So, you've got this person, and I don't know enough about the background of the whole Grimm Fairy Tales to really speak too much to this, but basically you have this person who was born in fairy tale land, whatever, comes to normal Earth as a baby, is raised by humans, and doesn't know that she has this greater purpose. Now, as she's growing up as a human, she is very much, she's a kleptomaniac because she's Rpbyn Hood, right? And she does do good things with her money. She, helps her mom pay for things, and she gives money to bums and all that kind of stuff. Very Rpbyn Hood, esque kinds of things going on. But she's very much an outsider amongst everyone. And what happens is, as she grows up, she faces off with sort of the big son in town. Not the dad is sort of this crooked guy, and the son kind of gets away with whatever he wants. And when she wrongs him, he comes back, hits her car, and basically does terrible things to her. And the police know about it, but they're not going to do anything because it's the son of, the head honcho of town or whatever. Now, that in and of itself isn't sexist. That's rape. It's terrible. But the thing that makes it sexist is they put her in the position of being a cheerleader when this is happening. Now, this is someone who doesn't get along with anyone, doesn't like school, doesn't fit in with anything, and yet she's a cheerleader. The only reason I can think that they made her a cheerleader, because it doesn't fit her character at all, the only reason I can think that they made her one is because they wanted to have a scene where a cheerleader is taken advantage of. Maybe I'm reading too much into that, maybe that's gone way too far, but that was genuinely the impression that I got with this book, and that struck me as extremely sexist. The other problem is, while she does kind of hold her own, she's not going to really hold her own as Rpbyn Hood until after she's gone through this terrible, rape ordeal. And for me, just the whole idea of, it isn't something that feminism has necessarily pointed out, but the whole idea that they have to be raped to unlock this greater, strength inside of them, I find that also to be incredibly sexist. So this book really bothered me on some levels, and I instantly, like, I almost didn't review it. I picked it up and I thought, why are you buying this? Like, don't buy this. And I bought it anyway, and it was exactly what I was expecting it to be. Are there good things about this? I mean, the character could ultimately be pretty interesting. I do like the idea of a Robin Hood character, but I feel like a sleazeball buying this book. So I don't know that I'm going to buy issue 2. For those of you guys who are into this kind of thing, in terms of like the whole Grimm fairy tales, let me know what these books are normally like. Is this sort of the norm? I feel like it is. Anyway, it did get my juices flowing though, and it definitely wins the most interesting book of the week, but it definitely doesn't win the best book of the week. So there you go. Those are the books I reviewed. I looked at Rpbyn Hood number 1. This is a mini-series, by the way. It's a 5, I believe. Danger Club number 4. Batman Detective Comics number 13. Animal Man number 13. Swamp Thing number 13. Earth 2 number 5, almost said 13. Amazing Spider-Man number 695, only a few more issues until this series ends. Hard to believe. Will I get number 1? We'll see. And then Green Lantern number 13. So there you go. Those are your books for this week. Hope you enjoyed this review, and I'll see you all again next week. Thanks for watching.